I think what people are going to need to learn as we sort of enter this age of generated text and images and all that sort of thing is how to spot when that's happening. People can't believe what they read online. Generating that sort of content is only becoming easier. Hi, I'm Chris, CTO of Safer Cities, and today we're back with Scott Bain, CEO of Safer Cities.
We've talked a lot, Chris, in the last episode about how I got into technology. How did you get into technology?
Yeah, so kind of interesting story, and I guess I probably have to cast my mind back to the first computer that I got, and probably what piqued my interest really was Dad brought home a laptop, which was probably the thickness of my phone on its side. And what really fascinated me was it was black and white, and I didn't know any different, right? Because I'd never used a computer before, and so that was all fun and games, and it was Windows 3.1, really old, and then it must have been a month or two later he brought home a CRT, right, monitor, and I remember plugging it in and wondering why it was in color, and the computer was in black and white, and obviously, years go on. It's like, oh, of course it was, because the screen was black and white, and the laptop screen was black and white, and the CRT was color. So that kind of really got me interested in technology in that respect. But then shoot forward another couple of years, when I was at primary school, all of our computers were locked down, and we used to have these educational DVDs or CDs, they probably were. And we couldn't open them because my computer was hidden on these computers, right? And the IT guy came down one day and changed where my documents was pointing from my documents folder to the drive that the CD was on, and you could open my documents and get to the CD drive. And I thought, wow, that's really cool. Super nerdy, but that was kind of clicked. And Mum and Dad actually started getting pretty pissed off because I kept getting pulled into all these other classes all the time at primary school to sort out their computer problems. So I was having the time of my life because I was doing cool stuff. But sort of, moving on with that, I guess I had lots of experience with Dad building stuff and taking things apart, as we talked about last time, right? We sort of always took engines apart together and all that sort of thing. And so come in organic time, I used to ride around on my bike and find broken computers, take them home, wow, and try and work out why people had thrown them out. And again, we talked last time about it either works or it doesn't. It's a sort of a working through and working out. Okay, well, if I take this out and I put it in this one, it still doesn't work. Okay, what if I try and swap this? What if I try and swap that? And I ended up building quite a few computers in my garage, wow, and sort of doing that, which was awesome. And then I guess lucky enough to go to a school where we use laptops every day, and so I guess being able to do that and play with that all the time was really, I guess, what solidified that love for computing.
Were laptops there when you turned up?
They were, yeah. I think I was the second or third year that was compulsory to have a laptop. So before that, it was optional, and then when I started, it was compulsory for everyone to have one.
And then so how I met Walter Chang, who introduced you to me and me to you, was selling the Wi-Fi into that particular school in 2001. So did they have laptops first before they had Wi-Fi, or how'd that work?
I'm trying to remember when I started there. It might have been, I guess they would have put the Wi-Fi. I think they had the laptops first, and then they had the Wi-Fi network, because Wi-Fi was still pretty early. I remember the first laptops that people had actually had a card that went on the side of them for Wi-Fi. Yep. Whereas the ones that we had were sort of, they had Wi-Fi built into them, very sort of primitive. But certainly using a laptop every day and all the sort of fun stuff that came with that was really, really cool. And I was given a lot of creative freedom, I guess, at school with Walter and sort of the technology department to actually explore that further, which was really awesome and really lucky. So.
And so what about the story, I can ask you to explain to the podcast about how you got employed by the ICT department? Yeah,
I knew you were going to go there. So, having a love for technology and building computers at home and all that sort of stuff, I had, at one point I was running my dad's business email server at home, right? And I couldn't get to it from school because it was blocked. We had one of those web filters which blocked everything, and that really annoyed me. And I remember just waking up one morning and working out that SSH traffic, which is like a remote command line, I guess, for lack of a better term, would probably look identical to website traffic if you ran it on the same port. And before I went to school that day, I changed my SSH server at home to run on the same port as a secure website. And sure enough, I had myself a tunnel to home. So I do remember very distinctly getting pulled into Walter's office, and him in his very philosophical way, which he does, love that about him, said to me, "Mr. Wiggins, why are you here?" And I went, "Oh, well, you've probably found," and this is probably 6 months after I started doing that. You know, I said, "Oh, you've probably found the way that I've been able to get past the firewall and all that sort of stuff." He said, "Yep." And we talked through it, and he was sort of turned a potentially negative situation into a very good one, right? And he sort of said, "Look, you know, you're not able to do that anymore. You can't do that because we can't let you do it." And I said, "Okay, sir. Yep, I agree." And then I don't know what it was, the cheek to say, "But you can't block it, can you?" And he went, "No, you can't." And we had a bit of a laugh. And then from there, it was kind of, I remember, it might have been maybe a month or two later going to him and saying, "You know, is there any way I can actually work in the IT department?" And he went, "Absolutely." And I was the first student they employed.
Wow.
So yeah, so I don't know if they still use it or not, but I was fortunate enough to in my 6th and 7th form years, I went to Walter and said, "Is there anything I can do that would assist the IT department?" And he said, "Why don't you look at help desk software, because we haven't been able to find something that works specifically for students with laptops where we can assign stuff to it." And so for 2 years in my technology paper, I was actually lucky enough to write the help desk software for St. Kitts. I didn't know if they were going to continue using it or not. Again, you know, Walter, a bit like yourself, took a chance on me and went, "Actually, we're going to use it." And as far as I understand it, they were still using it about 2 or 3 years ago. So, you know, you sort of talk about that in our last episode. We talked about making sure things aren't perfect. I had to help them, might have been 4 or 5 years ago, migrate that software to a new server. And I remember looking at it and thinking, "Oh my gosh, you know, this looks like it's been written by a 16-year-old person who doesn't know how to program." And funnily enough, that's what it was. But you know, some stuff like that can stand the test of time. So I guess, yeah, I've been really fortunate in my life to have been given opportunities to explore stuff, do things, you know, with Walter turning that sort of negative into a positive, which was really cool.
Yeah.
But also just having that, I guess, that hunger to test and to try.
Yeah.
Which has kind of progressed me along my technology path. And I guess, you know, as you sort of come across new technology, again, there's that thing of, "Oh, I just want to try this out," you know. And we do that at work, right?
Yep.
We let everyone sort of explore things and
Yep.
and sort of encourage people to try things out, because you can only fail. You might learn something new. So
Yeah. And kudos to Walter Chang from St. Kitts as well, seeing the talent, seeing the brilliance and using it in a positive way.
Yeah.
And I do remember you actually working on that software when you started working for the company, right? You were still fixing it up.
Yeah.
So,
there was new bits of functionality they wanted to add, but it was pretty cool to see. I mean, I guess that was probably the first. That's probably why I maybe struggled at university a little bit, because again, it was the whole exam thing, and I'm getting examined on some software that I'm building to prove that I can do it, and it sort of felt pointless when I'd already been given the opportunity to build a whole help desk system for a school, and we were already writing software for the police. So yeah, I mean, it kind of an interesting journey, but it definitely started from a love of taking things apart and fixing them, and that's, you know, probably attributed to you taking engines apart with Dad.
What do you enjoy most about writing software? Like, what's a good day for you?
That's an interesting question. I think seeing things come together and knowing how it's going to be used. Like you and I have sort of shared in some joy of a software feature that we've just written recently, which we've probably wanted to do since this company started.
Yeah.
And, I guess the challenge was great in terms of needing all the right pieces lined up for it to work. So being able to write that and then actually see it come to fruition and then go, wow, I know exactly how this is going to be used, and it's going to be really useful, and it's going to be used in such incredible ways. That's the feel good factor. That's the warm fuzzy feeling. But also too, the kind of that really good feeling of, oh yeah, I've been able to crack it. We've been able to work that out. That's cool. Again, there was something that happened this morning, maybe last night. I was working away at something and went, oh yeah, that's cool. So there's just those. It's kind of, I think the thing with software development is I sort of talk about it likening it to say people who do renovations, right? And there's that the sort of the piece of visual progress, right? People get really excited when they paint their house because you paint your house and you see it done. Whereas if you change the plumbing or you change the wiring, you don't see it.
Yep.
Whereas with software development, almost always you write something and you see it work. Like there's the type feedback loop, right? So you can you write a bit of code and it works and it's like, that's cool, it's a win. So you almost your workday is kind of almost this really interesting thing of a whole lot of wins, and then something might not work for days on end and you're feeling really down about yourself, and then you win again. It's probably actually maybe a bit like playing golf, People go back to playing golf because they get that one really good shot and they don't have another good shot for 6 months, but they just remember that one good shot.
Chemical release,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And to me, software development's like that. You've got these really cool wins all the time.
Right.
And then, going into comms or, talking with police and having knowing that they're actually using it in a way that is helping them do their jobs better is super rewarding.
I know we all feel honoured in the company to look after the Police Eagle video downlinks, right? And that was something that you took over in the early days from the previous vendor who'd sold it and then exited stage left. I've enjoyed watching your face, certainly in the early days of fixing that link, but yours and Adam's when there's an issue with the Eagle downlink, because there's a lot of stuff going on there, right? And and you've fixed it, and you know that it's helped save a life, or it's helped police look after some people in the community better, right? So I think that's another that to me it's a win myself when I see that, but it's a win when I see you guys get a real kick out of that, because it's a real sense of purpose for the company, and the engineering stuff that we do is actually making a difference.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we're I guess certainly lucky to be in the industry that we are in the sense that we are, it's not like tuning. You've told me stories about how in the early days the banks needed their latency to be so incredibly low, right, so that they could transact quicker, and that's really cool problems to solve. But there isn't that sort of higher power of actually affecting the world in a positive way, So certainly being able to write code that gets deployed and put into the hands of police, and they're directly using it to solve crime is second to none in terms of how good it makes you feel.
Oh, I actually forgot I told you that, but the milliseconds difference between London and New York and what that does to exchange rates, which is just money, right, at the end of the day. But the latency that I know that you've engineered out of VGrid Safer City platform so that Eagle's as low latency as it can be, that's, that I've heard police say that's the difference between knowing which way the bad guy's gone, so they know how to chase. So it's great to make a difference. And when we say Eagle, we mean the New Zealand Police Eagle helicopter.
That's right.
They've got 3 of them that they send around in the air, and they're fantastic birds.
They are. I mean, they solve a lot of crime with those things. And again, yes, we look after the downlink, but they also run our software in the helicopter too. So, we have been fortunate enough to go for ride-alongs with them. And you're sitting in this helicopter that's flying around, really trying to catch some really bad criminals, and they're using your software to do it. It's like that's cool.
Yep.
So Scotty, let's just chat about some of the sort of new technologies and things that are out there. I guess the big buzzword at the moment is AI.
Yep.
There's I guess some inherent privacy and security issues with it, right? In terms of sort of the deep fake stuff we're starting to see. What's your sort of read on that at the moment?
On the deep fake stuff?
Yeah.
I can see huge nays for it. I probably don't understand it as well as I need to at this stage, but I can't yet see the positive aspects of it for CCTV. It's quite worrying. I almost put deepfake into trying to understand astronomy and how big the universe is. I haven't really been able to think it out as far yet. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the problem that we've got now is, and I alluded to this sort of in the last episode of our podcast around this guy that's creating all these really cool AI technologies, right? Yep. And he's just mastered how to perfectly produce AI images of people, right? I mean, AI can sometimes stuff up hands. The classic one to tell is if an image has 6 fingers on one hand. Typically that's been AI generated because it gets that really wrong. But we're starting to get to a point where AI technologies are really good at generating images of people, and then also the deep fake thing is really scary. There are lots of things out in, we see it out in the media and stuff about, illicit videos of people being made, and it's actually all completely fake in the face. But I guess applying that to the CCTV industry, what's going to be really important is sort of almost like we've done with our Vault product, is the sort of chain of evidence or chain of custody, is looking at technologies whereby the camera can digitally stamp images and all that sort of thing, so that when they are retrieved for the likes of use in court or for police cases or whatever, that we're actually able to prove that this image has not been tampered with. It is exactly as the camera saw it. Because otherwise, what's stopping someone from intercepting that footage, taking my face out of it, putting your face on it and saying, no, Scott was there. He was the one that committed the crime, not Chris. So yeah, I guess new technology's always got its drawbacks, and we've got to be careful of all of that, and I guess keep our finger on the pulse, from a privacy standpoint and from how it operates and all that sort of thing. But something that we are doing at the moment, I guess, is aggregating automatic number plate data, ANPR data, for police. So talk to me about that a little bit.
Yeah, well, you've written the code, so you've been heavily involved in it. So and so we've been doing that since 2016, haven't we?
Yes.
And the problem we're solving there, we had that amazing police guy come to us and say, Scotty and Chris, a lot of people are buying ANPR cameras now, and they're using it for their own purposes to either count cars for traffic or see how many cars are parking in their car park. But what they're also increasingly doing, and this is back in 2016 and they're still doing it now, but they're getting an IT company to come in and log onto our police website and scrape the number plate stolen data from the website. So rather than hundreds of people doing that, why don't Safer Cities write as a gateway where people can freely send in their number plate data, and then we'll send you the stolen plate, stolen car database that's freely available. And then if a stolen car's out there driving, then it will alert inside police. So that's publicly available data. We typically find if someone steals a car, then often something can happen after that. So people shouldn't really be driving around in stolen cars. So that's a good thing for the community to get stolen cars off the road, to have a little bit of preemptive policing before something bad happens. So we're quite proud of that. We're obviously close to the Privacy Commissioner and the Deputy Privacy Commissioner. We're well within the Privacy Act and the rules, and other companies are as well that provide a similar service to police. So that particular module we've got on VGrid, you and I have seen has been very successful.
Massively, yeah.
And we're very proud of it. And we find more and more the community want to share ANPR data to police through us. So that's I think that's been a great success story for the company and the software. I think the one that's interesting though and very political is facial recognition.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Whether we do the same for that. And I think you and I are not convinced yet that we would pass facial recognition data or alerts through VGrid. It might happen way out in the future. But moving us aside and VGrid aside, I actually think facial recognition is going to happen. Used in the right way, it's very positive. And I think if things are kept within rules and guidelines within your own organisation and it's not exploited, then I don't see how it's not going to happen. It's we're going to wake up in 5 years. It's going to be everywhere. Yeah. It's just making sure there's a framework and there's governance, and people's privacy is respected.
Yeah.
But if I was a shop, if I was a retail chain or a shop, and I had certain people that came in and caused havoc or were violent, I would absolutely want to use facial recognition to have some preemptive warning that, okay, this person's back. Not so good, every time he comes back or every time she comes back, there's an issue. So let's just turn up the security a little bit for the hour and maybe ask them nicely to leave. We had, I'm not sure if you were in the meeting the other day, Chris, but we had a very skilled person in this area who's in retail, who said they've got categories for people, and one of the categories was non-violent, violent. So they're, the fact that they have to worry about violent people
offenders,
walking into a retail store, retail chain is quite scary, and so I would certainly want it. What I think we haven't worked out is if everyone out there starts doing facial recognition in a bigger way, would we want to pass that to police? Would police want to receive it? Probably not. Would the Privacy Commissioner be happy with that? Probably not. So I think it's a long way away before we'll have to answer that question.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess it's probably a little bit like ANPR. I mean, if we cast our minds back to when we actually started implementing it, there was no real sort of tried, true, and tested privacy around ANPR, right? Like it was,
Correct, yeah.
it was still quite new, and people got up in arms that you were being tracked if you could track your number plate, and that's obviously since been ruled that number plate data isn't personally identifiable if it's not tied to the owner of the vehicle, which we don't do, right?
Yeah.
Like, so we don't know that ABC 123 passing through our platform to police belongs to John.
Yeah.
But with facial recognition, I guess, it's very clearly you are tracking a person. But again, legislation probably hasn't kept up with the technology advancements.
Yeah.
And that's where, I guess, like you say, we might see individual shops start to do it. I mean, there has been some problems with privacy, hasn't there, with the trials that have been happening. But certainly a really interesting technology to keep in front of. And like you've said, if you were a shop owner, absolutely you'd want to be stopping people coming into your shop that were dangerous. Why wouldn't you? Because it's not only affecting your staff in your shop, but it's also affecting your customers too.
Yeah.
So you can really see why people are doing it. I guess where people get really concerned is they don't want their every movement to be tracked. But on the flip side of that coin, it's very easy for someone to go to a telco and ask the telco exactly where your mobile's been if they really wanted to, right? So it's just around, what is it that we're tracking and how it's being stored and all that sort of thing. And I think the controls for all that data needs to be a lot tighter and a lot more carefully managed. But the legislation around that may take years and years and years to come. So
One of the reasons why facial recognition is so contentious is probably because of movies like Minority Report, where you're walking past a shop and they say, "Hey Chris, do you want to buy some more Levi's jeans because you bought some here last week?" Right? That's what people don't like, and as you say, legislation, governance, and everything like that. So I think to reiterate what you said about the registration plate data too, a registration plate on a car is not considered personal information if Safer Cities hold that on behalf of police, because Safer Cities can't map that to a person, right? And that's something we've validated with the Privacy Commissioner of New Zealand and the Deputy Privacy Commissioner, and it's pretty much the same in Australia and the UK as well. So so I think that's a lot easier than facial recognition to understand the privacy aspects of it. But yeah, you're right. It's taken 4 or 5 years for that to crystallise. So certainly very interesting. So I don't know, where do you see AI going with things like this? Right, the next bit up the stack is, can you tell me the number of people with a red T-shirt and a white hat? Is that?
Yeah, I mean,
we're
certainly seeing a lot of analytics companies sort of doing that sort of thing now, right? Like classifying objects in a frame and storing that data as metadata, so it's easily searchable. I think where things like your GPT models that ChatGPT is based on, where they're really useful is being able to use, I guess, more human wording or tonality to ask a problem, right? So previously, you might have had to go into an analytics tool and go, I want hat red, jeans white, all that, and choose from a drop-down list. Whereas, I've even had thoughts around some of the stuff we could do in our technology with stuff like that. But being able to just type, please find me someone that had a red hat and blue jeans on the 10th of July between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. and have that tool automatically go, cool, I know what you're looking for, and go and do that complicated search. Things like that will, like certainly AI text in that sort of way is really useful. You're starting to see it even, dare I say it, how much we all hate automated chatbots and stuff, but they are getting a lot better because of stuff like that, because it can use natural language to talk to you. So I think we'll see we'll certainly see sort of mundane UIs and things that we
Right.
have to do in our life that are quite potentially difficult to use because you have to be very specifically trained in them.
Right.
Being able to either talk,
Get easier to use.
get easy to use because you can actually ask it a question in whatever way you want, or you can talk to it. There's open source home automation thing, Home Assistant, which I run at my place, right? And they've just integrated a voice assistant which uses some form of AI in the back of it, and so you can go turn on all my lights, and it knows exactly what you mean when you say all my lights, rather than I can't find a light called all my lights,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So
Good example.
that's kind of where that technology is really useful. Of course, at the same time, you do have things where you can see all these articles and stuff online. I was reading one last night about sort of a server technology we're looking at using, and I thought, wow, this article is really repetitive, and I bet it was largely written by a GPT model. So, it's going to be, I think what people are going to need to learn as we sort of enter this age of generated text and images and all that sort of thing is how to spot when that's happening. Because, we the last US elections and all the stuff about the conspiracies around, Russia getting involved and all that sort of thing. I mean, people can't believe what they read online. And generating that sort of content is only becoming easier. So, what it's going to take is maybe the world understanding that and sort of coming to a collective knowledge that, okay, this looks like it's been automatically generated, or news articles and things being more validated. I think there's a lot of trust that's been lost in some sort of news and a lot of websites and stuff in general, because they don't know that it's actually correct.
Yeah, right.
And what's to stop Bob down the road starting a blog post and looking like the authoritative figure on, all the stuff that's happening between Russia and Ukraine? You can't. You could ask ChatGPT to write it all in Russian if you wanted to, and it probably would, right? So it's sort of scary, but it's also exciting because I think for me, I see a lot of ease of life stuff coming out of the likes of AI, ChatGPT type things. Of course, there's a million different people that are creating all these new projects and technologies and all that sort of thing, and they're all doing the same thing, and it's like not really that useful because people are trying to find a use for it. But it is very, exciting because it for me as a software engineer, I can see, we've always talked about trying to make our interfaces easy to use as possible. And some of the things that we're looking at doing in the future around specialized searching for, doing reports on who's been using the system when, and what did they access, and how did they access it, and where did they come from. If you could just have someone type, I want to know what Scott Bain was doing on this day, and have it go, cool, what else do you want me to include in the report? Oh, I'd like to know what cameras he looked at and what number plates he searched.
Yeah, cool.
And then have it spit out, this is what's happened. So like stuff like that, where you don't have to go through menus and menus and menus and choose what you want and this, that, and the other. You can just type it and have it happen.
Almost like a big long string on a Google search. Like, tell me the.
Exactly.
So I like that, right? I hadn't thought of AI being applied to the user interface. That actually makes sense to me. I like what you're saying there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm starting to see it happen in quite a few different products, and people are always saying there's an AI beta, for searching or for all sorts, but it is really, really useful. And really good technology. So I guess we'll wrap it up there, Scotty. Any final thoughts for the audience before we go?
I think the magic that we've always had in terms of, I see certain problems out there and you see a way of solving them in software, right? That magic is what others should try and replicate, because I think different people see things different ways. I mean, you and I love it, right? It's been the success of the company and helped it grow like it has, and it'll continue. That's my final thought on that.
So thank you for coming in, Scotty, and thank you for watching the Safe Sundays podcast episode. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.